Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, and I am so tired today. I bet you thought I was going to say I was so excited, which I am. I am excited to be here with you, but I'm really tired today, and this matters. There's a reason I'm telling you this, right? That I'm tired, right? So first of all, let me tell you why I'm tired and what I went through, because there's a lesson here. I promise. I'm not just this is not just a pity party here. I'm really gonna tell you something that matters here. I promise. So last night around like midnight, there's little. So we live in a little kind of sort of a condominium kind of apartment thing. It's not a big building, but it's attached houses, And so there's four attached houses in our unit, and then right behind us there's it's completely separate, situation and stuff, that there's four units, in this other kind of building, right? We're not connected in any way. Very nice people. We know all of them. They're all super nice. We go into their backyards to get our soccer balls and stuff like that. So everything's all good, right? And there's two neighbors who just got new dogs, right? I think you see where this is going, right? And so apparently, so this one neighbor, one neighbor got a like a yellow lab, and that dog is just solid as the day is long, right? There's no problems with the lab, right? He doesn't bark, he doesn't, I see him out there like chewing on stuff he's not supposed to chew on. When I'm on my balcony, I say, "Hey, Cody, what are you doing?" And he looks at me with a cute little lab face and stuff. So he's all good, And Phoebe, the dog next door, I think she's kind of like one of those. She looks like a cockapoo, and I had a cockapoo for a long time, a cocker spaniel poodle mix, and cockapoos are awesome dogs, And Phoebe is an awesome dog. She's a little cute, little black fluffy thing, a little gray on her chin, little white spots here and there. Really, really sweet dog. Totally cute, totally adorable. And but she's animated. Let's just say that, right? And so last night, apparently at like 11:30, 12 o'clock, Phoebe was barking so much that the two women who live there, they put her outside in the backyard, where she continued to bark and wake my whole family up. So actually, my wife went over there, knocked on their doors, like, "Could you please take Phoebe in, because she's keeping us up?" And they were like, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry, we didn't think of that. And oh my god." And so so that was something, right? So I woke up and around midnight, and I went back to sleep pretty quickly after that. But then for some completely unexplained reason, I have no idea what the heck happened, but 4 o'clock in the morning, I was as awake as I have ever been in my life, right? Just like wide eyed, like saucer eyes, like what the heck is going on? And I know from experience, and I know from a lot of studying that I've done, and I'm going to take a sip of caffeinated tea here. I know from my own experience and from studies that I've done that the worst thing you can do when you can't sleep is to stay there, right? Like, I know it always feels like, well, if I get up, then I need to get back to sleep. So if I get up, then I'm maybe not going to get back to sleep. So I'm just going to stay here and try to go back to sleep. And that usually doesn't work. So what I do, I've devised a little system of myself. So what I do is I do a little bit of a meditation for about 15 minutes or so. And at that point, if I don't start feeling drowsy at the end of about 15, 20 minutes of meditation, well, then I know that my body's just not digging the sleep thing right now. So I get up, right? And that's the best thing you can do, right? And get up and do something, though. There's specifically certain things you can do, like turning on the TV is not the best option, reading, there's mixed reviews on reading. I love to read, so that's what I did. I made myself a calming tea to make me kind of get drowsy a little bit, and then I just took out this beautiful book I'm reading called The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. It's fascinating stuff, and I read a chapter of that, about 20 pages. And then I started feeling like, okay, and I also had something to eat. I was apparently very, very hungry, so I had a big bowl of cereal, I had that cup of tea, and was reading. And then at around like 5:30 or so, I started feeling, okay, yeah, I'm feeling a little drowsy now. So I went back up to bed and I fell asleep again, And so, but the point is, though, of course, like I'm not, I didn't have a great night's sleep, right? Like I'm not well rested today, right? Like that is definitely not what I would categorize myself as well rested, right? And so now I had a choice this morning, right? And I even had a choice last night. Like, like while I was trying to go back to sleep, I could get very anxious and even like resentful, like, oh, that darn dog, it's her fault, that kind of stuff, It's not really the dog's fault. The dog's just doing what the dog does, right? If anything, it's the neighbors who let the dog out. But even that, they didn't do it to me. It's, they didn't think of me when they did that, Maybe next time they will, which will be nice, but that's okay, right? It's not the dog, right? And so I could, and even this morning, right, when I wake up, I have the choice now. I could say, okay, I'm going to cancel appointments. I'm going to, I'm too tired to like deal, it's not a good day. I'm just going to have a crappy day today and I'm going to just be meh, all miserable, right? Or I have the choice to sit and just realize that, okay, you know what? Today's going to be different from what I expected it to be. And that's okay, right? It doesn't have to be exactly what I thought it was going to be in order for it to be a productive, enjoyable, and frankly, important day, right? The day is here. And just because I'm not 100% doesn't mean that I can't be here 100% for the day, right? And be really present with it. Right. And be accepting of the fact that I'm not 100%, let go of the expectation of whatever I thought today was going to be, and simply allow myself to experience the day. Right. And that's what I'm going to try to do. And so far it's working. I'm happy to tell you. And so that's not really, that is kind of the lesson, but there's a lesson attached to that. So just about an hour ago, I had a meeting with a client, right? And now I'm not going to name her or anything like that, but I did tell her I was going to talk about the string beans in a podcast, and I want to tell you about the string beans, okay? So this person who I'm talking about, right, this person went to a dinner last night at like a country club kind of thing, right? And, this person is a vegan. She only eats plants, right, which is the same for me. And so buffets can get a little tricky, right? You're definitely staying away from like the loin of pork or whatever it is that they're cooking down at the end there, and you're gonna load up on the veggies and the sides and stuff like that. So that's what this person did, right? And of course now they went to this country club thing thinking it was just gonna be a basic dinner, and instead it turned out to be like a huge event with like a jazz band and all kinds of stuff, and so they couldn't hear each other, and it was just and my client was sitting next to somebody who politically she didn't really align with, and it was just a very difficult conversation. All this is to say that 6 months ago, and I promise you this is true, 6 months ago, I might have even gotten a call from the client last night, right? She would have been so just so stressed about everything that was happening, right? Between the expectations, the music, the and there was also something where she doesn't drink anymore, which I don't either, so I respect that. And there was like some judgment about, hey, let's go get a drink. Yes, I'll have sparkling water, like, kind of thing, like what she called a scrunchy face, And so I mean, there was lots there that, anybody could have found themselves losing their temper in that situation, right? But she didn't. Instead, do you know what she told me this morning? She was telling me all about how angry she got and how, annoying it was and stuff like that. But she kept saying that, but it was such a beautiful dinner. And, and then she said, and I had these delicious string beans. I mean, these string beans were so good, right? And so that's really, really important because, and this is going to get into the topic of the day too. It's really, really important to notice that, or to recognize that when we're in that place, right, when things are not going well, right, that's when we are likely to focus on what's not going well, right? And when we focus on what's not going well, that's when we feel, we're going to naturally feel a sense of fear from that. And the fear that our brain perceives is going to cause the stress response, because it's the only way that your brain knows how to respond to something that's causing fear, right? And so in that stress response, that's, or in the paying attention to only the negative stuff and the stress response that produces, well, then we're just not going to notice anything good about the night, right? We're just gonna, we're gonna just, just kind of just keep complaining and keep, just, we might go into like a little bit of a victimhood at that point, and a little bit of, why me? Why am I here? Why did I have to be this way? And all this kind of stuff, right? And all these thoughts are doing is dragging us down and into this, and I told this person this morning, I said, 6 months ago, I would have been talking you off the ledge this morning, if not last night. And she was like, gosh, you're right. And even though it was really not a good time, like there was a lot to complain about. Yes, there was a lot to complain about. But yet she was able to find a couple of things that were good about the night too, right? And that right there is what presence is all about. Okay? When we are present with something, right? When we're truly dwelling in the present moment, what that kind of naturally arises from there is an openness and a kind of a curiosity that, yeah, some things are going to be really awesome and some things are going to be really crappy, and everything in between is going to happen too. And in that presence, in that openness, that curiosity, that's where acceptance arises, right? So we can accept the fact that I'm stuck next to this person and she was judging me about not having a drink, and I can't have a big meal. I can only have the side dishes. But you know what? The beans are delicious, and I'm so happy for these beans, right? That's how we create a balance, right? And it's really, because it's never about it's never about the idea that you're going to, that you're not going to experience anything that's bad, right? Like that's never, never, never. If that's what you think I'm saying at any time, please pause and remind yourself what I said right now, that it is never, ever, ever about trying to not have any negative experiences. That also is simply not going to work, right? Because life is made of all kinds of experiences, and we have no idea, and that's the thing about the expectations, right? We go, we got plans for this dinner, we have this vision in our mind what this dinner is going to be, that's our expectation, and then it turns into something different, right? And that's the, our ability to accept that, and our ability to find the positive little glimmers of positivity in there somewhere. And if they're not there, just pure acceptance and pure forgiveness and pure just presence. What that allows us to be, as I told my client this morning, there's a buzzword going around like bulletproof coffee, bulletproof morning routine, bulletproof marketing. That's what people are saying nowadays, the bulletproof. And I feel like this makes me bulletproof, right? Because if I can accept and find something, something to appreciate even in the negative and really difficult times in my life, well then nobody can knock me off my game, right? I am bulletproof at that point, right? And so that's one really important aspect of presence, right? Is the ability to really, because again, if you're wrapped up in how miserable you are, that there's a jazz band and I'm stuck next to this person and I don't want to have a drink and they want me to have a drink and I can't eat the pork, and when we dwell in all of that, right, that's not present, right? When we think about like how horrible all that is, that's taking us away from the present moment, right? And so it's only when we can dwell in the present moment that we notice the delicious string beans, right? And maybe a really great song the jazz band played at some point, like we have the chance to notice those things. And that's what presence is all about, right? Presence is all about being able to experience life, right? Here and now, experience it for everything that it is, and not experience it for what it is not, right? Not like dwell on what's missing and what should be and what ought to be and the way I want things to be and all that stuff, but instead just being present with what is. And so there's something else that comes from this presence, right? And this is really, really a vital skill, and that is empathy. Right now, empathy. I'm taking this course with Dr. Dan Siegel that is like it's been just so amazing. Interpersonal neurobiology, and so far I've been through 6 like 90-minute video lessons. Everyone is like, oh my gosh, it changed my life, And so yesterday, one of the topics that he covered in yesterday's video session was was empathy. So I have a few notes. I'm gonna put my glasses on here. Don't be. It's okay. And I'm going to tell you a couple things about empathy that are kind of important. I just want to reflect to my notes just so that I don't forget something. Sometimes in my excitement and my aroused nervous system, I forget to mention something, and afterwards I'm like, darn it. So anyway, so empathy. Right, the word empathy comes from the prefix "em" is within, right? Emigrate, right, and path is to feel, right? So empathy means to feel within, right? Now, the thing is that just like the string beans, right, we're not going to feel within if we're distracted about without, right? Like if we're so focused on the things that are not going right for us, if we're so focused on how upset we are, or how much angry we are at that person who gave us that scowl for not having a drink and all that stuff, right? Then we're not able to be here to really feel what's going on. And that's where we get into a really, really difficult place, because, that just kind of takes on a life of its own, right? Like you can, it's very difficult at that point to come and ground yourself back into the moment, especially because, as I did for many, many years, you probably don't even realize that you're outside the present moment, right? That's how distracting it becomes. And one of the things that you miss out then is not just the string beans, right? I mean, of course, the string beans are beautiful. We all love string beans, at least I do. And I'm really happy that there's delicious string beans at buffets that are, carnivores, but the bottom line is, though, that it's not about just the string beans, right? It's also about connecting to those around you, right? If you're not present, then you don't pick up on the fact that the person that you're with is sad about something or struggling with something. And then you don't have the chance to connect to that person through that difficulty, that sadness that they're feeling. And then that's an opportunity that's lost. And what happens as a practical matter is that, when we don't feel someone else's sadness, and this could be, whether it's your spouse, a close friend, your children, right? These are important people in your life, and the more that they sense that you don't sense them, well, that causes like a rupture in the relationship, right? And that diminishes trust, that diminishes love, that diminishes the connection that we have with each other. So empathy is not just something that's like, there's a lot of woo-woo people out there who I'm an empath and, all that kind of stuff. Good for them. That's great. But empathy is a core skill, right? It's a core life skill it's also something that's very natural. Just like I talked the other day about how we're wired for compassion and kindness, right? We're also wired for empathy. There are parts of our brain that are purely responsible for measuring how we're feeling as we feel another. Like it's the system is built to do it, right? And so, but so many of us, if we don't use that muscle, it gets atrophied, and it just, we just lose the ability. And again, empathy is that's that connecting thing that we have, right? It's the connecting action that we have to others in our lives, right? To have a true connection with somebody, to really, really be there with somebody, you gotta have empathy. Like that's a required thing. It's not an option. It's not a luxury. If for any healthy relationship, there has to be some level of empathy. Otherwise, it's not really a healthy relationship. right? And you could still have you could have a working relationship that's perfectly, healthy in that context without empathy. Sure, you could do that, right? But do you want to? You know? But certainly when it comes to your family and your friends and those really close to you, that's a different level. Like that's an empathy that is really, really important, right? And so let's talk about, there's actually many different types of empathy. A lot of times, I just talked about one here, right, which is sort of the empathic resonance, if you will, right, which is the ability for me to feel whatever emotionally is going on in your body, for me to be able to feel that in my body, right? And again, there's a couple of really specific parts of my brain that are built to do that, right? Like that's their function, and they do it really well if they are allowed to do it really well, right? And so that's just the first part of empathy, or the first type of empathy, if you will. Dr. Siegel gave me 5 different types of empathy. Pardon me. So the first one, again, is that empathic feeling, right? The emotional resonance. Like I feel what you feel in my body. That's the sort of common base kind of universal empathy, if you will, right? But empathy can also be an empathic understanding, right? And this is something that will be applicable in the business realm, right? Is that can I understand from what you're telling me? Can I conceptually understand what's going on in your mind? Right? Can I and again, I'll never feel what I'll never know what you actually feel like. That's something we can't really communicate with each other. But do I have a sense of what's going on in your mind? Do I have a sense that you're worried about something? Do I have a sense that you're excited about something? Do I have a sense that you're struggling with something? Right? Again, not in an emotional way, but in a conceptual way, like based on what you're saying to me, right? And so this could even happen through a typed communication, really, right? Because it's conceptual. It doesn't require a feeling so much, right? Another angle of pun intended, another angle of empathy is perspective taking, right? Am I able to put myself in your position and see a situation the way that you see it, from your perspective, from your point of view? Can I put myself in your shoes for a minute and see what that looks like to you? And in that space, I learned a lot about what you're, whatever it is that you're expressing, whatever it is you're going through. I can learn a lot about you, about that, about how you feel, what you're struggling with. I can learn so much about all that by being able to see the world from your perspective, right? So that's another kind of empathy, right? And now there's, in a lot of ways we empathy kind of gets a bad rap a little bit, right? Because it's all about like feeling another's pain and stuff, right? But there's also empathic joy, right? Like to be able to feel your happiness, right? On a visceral level, to feel that you, and when I can feel your joy, I can celebrate your joy, right? Like your joy can become my joy, right? Which that's when we're cooking with gas in a relationship, right? Like when I can feel your joy. And so a lot of times, right, like the opposite of empathic joy would be something like jealousy or envy, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, sure, she's so happy, right? No, like, my gosh, you're so happy, this is wonderful, let me join in your happiness. And it feels really good to feel your happiness, right? So that's also part of empathy. And now we get to my favorite, which is, this is really fascinating, where now we get to the point of empathic concern, right? That I see that something's troubling you, and I want to help. I want to do something. I see you suffering. I want to end your suffering. I want to play a role in ending your suffering. Does that sound like something else? If you say compassion, you are 100% correct. And that's a really beautiful thing, where empathy, that last part, where empathic concern sort of empathy morphs into compassion. And that's a really important part of it, right? Because that's the flow, right? That's the natural flow. And quite frankly, that's the flow that keeps us healthy. Okay, let me tell you about something called empathic stress fatigue is what it's called, right? Which is so here's how empathy works, right? As I told you, there's specific parts of my brain that are used to feel your pain or your joy or whatever it is, right? Or understand you, right? Well, now let me hold on 1 second. Okay, so when I feel you, right, the parts of my brain that are responsible for feeling you, right, for feeling in my body what you're feeling in your body, those parts of my brain are in that lower limbic area of my brain, very reactive, very automatic, very subcortical, right? Which is another way of calling subconscious, right? Your consciousness is in that cortical, the cortex, right? The prefrontal cortex of the brain, right? You're not using that in empathy until you get into empathic concern, right? But in empathy, just feeling your feelings, I'm not using that cortex. I'm using my limbic area. I'm using my amygdala. I'm using my hippocampus. I'm using my what do you call it? Insula, which is how I feel into my body, right? But these parts of the brain are all associated with kind of the survival mode, right? Like that's there's a lot of like the amygdala, for instance, is like what's wrong. What's going on? Oh my gosh, something's wrong with this person. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And the insula, when I feel into my body, I can sometimes, if I'm not integrated and I'm not present and I'm not aware, I can actually lose the sensation that I'm feeling your pain, and I can start to believe that it's my pain, that something's going on in me. And now I'm moving away from you, and now I'm getting into a full stress response, right? But here's what happens. As soon as the empathy becomes empathic concern, which again is just kind of another way of saying compassion, then the energy from my brain goes up into the cortex, okay? Now, you can take that forever. But if you're constantly in that place of the amygdala action, well, that's stress, and you cannot take that for very long, right? You are going to wear out. You are going to burn out. You are going to become fatigued. And you might even, feel like you need to escape whatever the thing is, right? Get yourself away from this person who needs your help. Right. And so it's very, very powerful. But the thing is that when we naturally allow empathy to become compassion, then we start working with the top of our brain. And that the most beautiful, analogy or metaphor I've used for this is like, those are the same areas that a mother feels love for her child in, right? Like there's no end to that, right? Like that does not make you tired. That actually builds integration in your brain, as we discussed the other day, right? That's actually very, very healthy for you. You're actually building connections in your brain and integration that's going to actually make you healthier. It's going to make you more well. It's going to lay the foundation for even more solid relationships and more solid connections with the people you love. Right? It's going to allow for all kinds of really important health benefits, right? Whereas empathy, if it stays empathy, generally speaking, you're talking about a health risk, right? So I hope this helps to kind of frame the whole concept of empathy. But remember, the first thing is to be able to notice it. Right? And that's why I believe that empathy is required for compassion, right? As Kristen Neff said in a talk one time that I attended, if somebody's suffering on the street of the city, right? I'm the kind of person who would absolutely give $1 if I have one, or at least like look them in the eye and say, hi, kind of thing. There's lots of ways we can show compassion, right? And I'm that person who would absolutely show that compassion to somebody who I see on the, struggling, poor, homeless person with a cardboard box and a dog and all that kind of stuff, right? rips my heart out every time. But if I'm walking by and I'm on my phone, like doing a Facebook update, well, I don't notice the person, right? So it requires I be present with what's happening, and that noticing, right? Oh my gosh, look at that person suffering. Oh, I can feel that in my body. Suffering doesn't feel good. Now, what can I do to help this person suffering? And how can I help this person suffering? Maybe all that I can do is offer some kind words or just offer my presence to them for a few moments. But even that is something, right? And my brain registers that as something and something important. So tomorrow we're going to talk about compassion. Okay, we're going to take it in its natural flow, and we're going to get into compassion tomorrow to round out the week. And I'm so excited. I'm going to share a really wonderful practice that was, kind of inspired by something that a coach of mine a while back said. And I want to share this practice with you because I think it might help some of you out there. All right? All right, everybody. I wish you well, and I'll be back again tomorrow. Have a great, wonderful day. Be present, be accepting. And look out for those string beans, okay? Have a great day, everybody.